Shots on Target with your host, Brad Betts, your go to show for global football analysis and betting. Today is Wednesday, September 18th. Let's recap yesterday. We did miss our play of the day yesterday with a really poor showing in Ireland. So we are looking to bounce back. It's a difficult midweek slate with tons and tons and tons of fixtures, but not as many fixtures with a lot of reliability behind what we're looking at. So let's go ahead and jump into one match highlighting tonight in the MLS. We're also going to highlight a look in the Champions League before finishing off with our best bet for the day. Let's just go ahead and jump straight into it. Well, why do I have this jersey on? Messi plays tonight. Well, at least I believe he's going to be playing tonight. So Miami, they come in winning 9 of their last 10 matches, and they've only lost 2 of their last 20. That's a solid record for an MLS squad. They've scored 2+ goals in 13 of their last 15 matches coming into it. They've actually conceded in 16 of their last 18 away, and they're playing away tonight to an Atlanta team. Messi and Miami has been over 2.5 in 6 of their last 7. You're regularly seeing goals on both ends, hitting the over. Those who follow me know we tailed the BTTS in the over 2.5 regularly throughout this season. But let's take a look at this Atlanta squad. They've won just 5 of their last 28 matches. They are really struggling lately and to end the season. Yes, they scored in 27 straight home matches before the last 2 matches, which they failed to score. But right now, and they were a powerhouse at home, but right now they're really struggling. They've lost a lot of those players that provided a lot of the congruency within the lineup, especially Thiago Almeida. He's gone. He was their heartbeat. They're really struggling. They're held scoreless in 3 of the last 4 matches that they've played, so not a good run of form for them. These lines are basically at even for draw no bet on either side. Even Atlanta favored just a little bit, which does give me a cause for concern that there's a possibility that my man, Lionel Messi, will not be in the lineup. If he's in the lineup, the draw no bet is an absolute must play, and the line will shift accordingly when that lineup is announced. So be mindful of that. I do like Miami to take the victory tonight on the road, given how terrible Atlanta is. But if Messi's not in the lineup, then I'm not looking to play this play. So no Messi, no play. Be mindful. It is a great play, but only if Messi is there. So pay attention. We'll have lots of looks later on throughout the day. After Champions League, there's a number of hours in between. We'll have time to settle what we're going to be looking at for the MLS. So I wanted to focus on mainly the Champions League. We can take a look at yesterday's Champions League. All 6 matches hit over 1.5. You had 5 of 6 hit over 2.5. I believe it was every match but 2 hit both teams to score, so 4 out of the 6. We saw lots of scoring in this new format. Day 1 featured a lot of teams getting the better of another team. I don't necessarily know if that's going to be the exact case for today. We do need to be mindful as this is a new format and things will take a little bit of time for people to understand. However, there's one pick specifically outside my play of the day that I want to highlight, and that's in the Man City game. There's this young man, no surprise, everybody's might have heard of him, Erling Haaland, only the highest goal scorer in probably the world right now. He comes in scoring in 9 goals in 4 straight matches, the 4 Premier League matches, the last 4. And those goals were, he had 1, then he had a hat-trick, he followed that up with a hat-trick, and then he followed that up with a brace. The man's on form. Without Julian Alvarez to take over some of the load up top, it feels like he's being force-fed. Almost Man City sitting a little deeper than they normally do, knowing that that outlet ball to Haaland, if given space, is going to be absolutely deadly. Haaland has scored in 4 straight appearances. He has 9 goals in those 4 games. 70 Premier League appearances under his belt, 72 goals, 1.03 goals per game, 99 goals over his entire 103 games at Manchester City, just under a goal per game. Insane. And at home, he scored 59 goals in his 50 appearances. So that's over 1 per game at home. You look at the line, FanDuel has it sitting at -115 for his anytime goal scorer. And then DK and NGM are up at 145, which feels like where it should be, maybe even at 175 given his form. So I think that if you're looking for somebody to score today, Erling Haaland at minus 115 feels kind of like a no-brainer. If he's being fed, if you're watching that game, you could even pop into a live. That might be a look you want to go with given his form. Since I'm not much of an anytime goal scorer, it's never going to be my play of the day, but it is a really solid look for today. Next, we're going to go straight into our play of the day, no messing about. We could talk about PSG and Girona, which we might do for if anybody has any questions about that in the chat. But Sparta Prague today, coming in, scoring in 20 straight matches, including 28 of their last 29. They've had 2+ goals in 15 of their last 16 coming into it. Sparta Prague is a regular in Europe, a regular performer in their domestic league. You see them perform regularly, both on the offensive end and the defensive end. They're letting in right now 13 of their last 18 matches, they've conceded a goal, but 15 of their last 19 while in Europe, they've conceded. So they do concede in their domestic league, but when they come into Europe, they almost always concede. 2 of those matches that they didn't were to Malmo last time out, who missed a penalty, looked awful, and had plenty of chances. A pretty mediocre Malmo squad. So they've hit over 2.5 goals, this Sparta Prague team, in 34 of the last 37 in which they found both teams to score. So when both teams score, that over regularly hits. So let's take a look at Salzburg. Red Bull Salzburg from Austria, come in scoring in 30 of their last 31 matches. They've had 2+ goals in 16 of their last 20. Both of these teams flying on the offensive end. They both play very, very openly, back to front, a lot of counterattacking, a lot of more high-profile offensive players than their defensive players. You'll see some extreme athleticism in these two squads on the attacking end. Salzburg have also conceded in 17 of their last 23. That's regular production, and they've hit over 2.5 in 27 of the last 32 matches. That also featured both teams to score. So it looks like both teams are going to have a great opportunity to score based on these records. They're also conceding at regular records, which makes you really want to play that both teams to score, which is juiced over -200. No surprise there given this record. But if you take that step further and you look at how often that over 2.5 is coming in addition to that both teams to score on both sides, 34 of 37 for Sparta and 27 of 32 for Salzburg, that makes that this play with the over 2.75 sitting at -150, it only makes sense that if you're going to get to that over 2.5, there's a better chance for it to come through that both teams to score and over 2.5 goals. So what we'll do today is we'll parlay both teams to score and over 2.5 goals together, and I got that at -120 over on MGM. That's my favorite play for the day. Number of looks. You could possibly expect to see a Lugano score or a Lugano goal away from home in Swiss. Look to parlay that maybe with a Başakşehir over in Turkey. That's possible, but there's really a lot of fringe plays today. You got a Maribor squad who has a tough matchup away from home. They score a lot and concede a lot, but will they score and concede in today's matchup? I don't know. We had a lot of fixtures this morning in the Champions League, the AFC Champions League. That saw some goals, but some of those were back and forth. We're still trying to figure out who's playing who and how they're playing. Let's go ahead and jump into the chat real quick before we end up to see if we have any questions. Brad Morris, thanks so much for coming. You should have laddered Bayern's goals with me yesterday. It was insane. Once they started scoring, it was no stop. Kylie Reynolds, PSG money line and over 2.5. I like it. I mentioned earlier if anybody had a PSG question, I would touch on it. So here we are. PSG have hit over 3.5 goals in all 4 of their matches this far this season. They're flying. They got rid of Mbappe and look better. Bradley Barcola on the wing for PSG has really made an impact. You saw him for France this summer when he came in, made an impact. Now he's doing it for PSG. But really, for me, it's more about this Girona squad. Last season, an absolute high performer on both ends. It looks more so that they're going to be a high performer on the poor defensive end, being super porous against anybody who can score thus far this season. If PSG maintain control of the ball, there's a good chance that they could absolutely rip them apart. But it just depends. Girona should sit in deeply, but they like to play an open attacking football. They're going to be overmatched in today's game. So I do feel like if you should be looking at this game live, if you're going to be looking at that over, look more at the over 1.5 in the first half. If that doesn't come in, you could pop into that over 2.5 at halftime. That will be playable unless it's Girona 1-0 at halftime. Then you'll have to take that over 3. But this match, I do see a lot of goals. I just want to see the first 5 minutes to see how they match up because I'm not a huge fan of PSG, but they have looked really good thus far this season, and Girona have looked so poorly. There's a great chance for goals in this match. Let's go, Kylie. You got Celtic over, or Celtic, however you want to say it, over 1. I think it's over 1-4 live. I'll be on. I'm not positive there. If you could rewrite that, I'll get into it. Over 1.5 live. That's true. I would hop into the Celtics team total 1.5 live, but I wouldn't play anything above 1.5 pre-match. Slovan Bratislava aren't a bad squad. They're a good European squad for a low-level, low-league squad. They tend to perform porous and consistently finding the net on the offensive end. I don't have a great feel for that match, but Celtic is flying early in the season, so you do kind of expect them to have a couple goals. The draw in Sparta, that's possible. I actually see this to be more of a 2-1, 3-1 type of event. I think Sparta could get the best at 2-1. I think they're a little better than Salzburg, but Salzburg just have some great attackers, and they'll be up back and forth. And the way Sparta played Malmo, you expect they're going to be porous. So that kind of concludes what we have in the chat today. It's a difficult day. I mentioned yesterday we might find some little bit of value, but that value has been nuked overnight. I think the Sharps saw yesterday's matches and said, there's a possibility we're going to see some goals today. They're just guessing on this new format. I don't like to do guesswork here at Brad Betts, so I want to make sure that we are honing in on only the smartest plays. I think Haaland is a great look. I think the BTTS and over 2.5 is the best look for Sparta and Salzburg. I like a number of looks in the MLS, which we'll cover later. I might go live on X today just to discuss. If anybody wants to hop in, I might do that. But other than that, let's take this slowly and let's look for those live opportunities. Midweek fixtures can sometimes be hangover fixtures. So with the Champions League, new format, all these other leagues, hangover fixtures, it's just confusing. I could see the BTTS, as I mentioned in that Miami-Atlanta game. Prince, thanks for popping in here. It's a good possibility based on the 27, but lately, or 27 straight without the 3 straight, or 3 out of the last 4 that they haven't scored. Regular scoring for Atlanta, regular conceding for Miami, but we're going to wait on Messi's status. He matters more than everything. So again, that concludes today's episode. Keep it nice and short and sweet. Again, we're going to look to come back into tomorrow for the 3rd day of Champions League. The only week that will have 3 days of Champions League. It will return to 2 days. The following week, we're going to have a 3-day, I believe, Europa League next week. They're kind of highlighting, doing different things in Europe this season, which could affect how all the performances lie. You'll have teams that are going to have quick turnarounds, i.e. Arsenal on Thursday with a trip to City on Sunday, back to back. So be mindful that these teams are also looking ahead a few days. You need to understand that nothing is as simple as what we see on paper, which is why the paper matches are what we excel at the best over the weekend. So let's keep it light and look for something live. Again, that concludes today's episode of Shots on Target with your host, Brad Betts, your go-to football analysis and betting show. Today is Wednesday, September 18th. We will see you guys tomorrow.